千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. Now, without further ado, let's continue with Tao Te Ching 27. As we discussed in our last meeting, the title of this chapter means following enlightenment, a term that comes from the 10th line of this chapter. It means to carry on the wisdom tradition of the Tao, to follow the enlightened teachings that have been passed down to us, and in turn, pass it on to all who follow us. And this continues the legacy of the Tao. Last time, I wanted to make sure this term, following enlightenment, is translated and explained correctly. This time, we will carry that clarified understanding through the last section of this chapter to the very end. Here's another look at the chapter itself. The chapter contains 16 lines, and as always, we were able to analyze the sectional breaks and see this chapter contains 3 sections. Here's how they look. And last time, we began our discussion from line 6. We were able to cover section 2, the middle section, which ends at line 10. That means today we will continue our discussion starting at line 11 after our quick recap. The first recap is about the relationship between the Tao sages and the people. The sages provide guidance to all who will listen, all who are receptive, thereby saving them from being lost and adrift in life. And this is done by directing them to the right path. Of course, people may choose not to follow the direction. It is completely up to them. Nevertheless, the sages do not give up on people because they can see the great potential in them. Elsewhere in the Tao Te Ching, in Tao Te Ching chapter 5, Lao Tzu explains that this regard for people is something that applies universally because a sage would treat everyone the same. No personal animosity, no playing favorites. And this is also true regardless of any negative judgment from society. So even if a certain individual is seen as a misfit, they are accepted just the same as everyone else. The disabled, the undesirable, the powerless, all are equal in the Tao. People who are considered by society to be quote unquote useless are anything but that in the eyes of the Tao. The second recap is that the sages have a similar approach to everything, not just everyone. So just like they see potential for greatness in all individuals, they also see the potential of usefulness in all things. So for people, the potential for greatness; for things, the potential to be useful. The sages do not wish to waste that potential in people or things, but when it comes to things, they would also not be attached. And what I mean is, they would not grasp onto things long past their expiration dates. And the things they cannot use in a creative way, they know can always be shared or donated. The bottom line is, just like nobody is truly useless in the eyes of the Tao, nothing is truly useless in the Tao as well. The third recap, this is where we stopped last time, on the concept of following enlightenment, which is the title of this chapter. This concept of following in the enlightened footsteps of those who came before us, I feel this is more important than it may seem at first. It is a concept that is carried forward in a subtle way that perhaps some people will completely miss, and I'm going to make sure is clear for all of us. So as we progress, keep a mental image in mind. Think of our journey in life like a road upon which we travel, and as we travel this road, we take in the sights, we absorb lessons along the way. We walk this trail and we can see that it has been established, it has been walked by the countless generations before us. So it's clearly marked. It is not difficult in essence to walk this path. And if we were to look behind us, we can also see there are people following in our footsteps, just like we follow the footsteps of those before us. So these people, they're at places that we have been. They are seeing sights that you and I have already seen. They are experiencing the challenges of the road that we have already faced in the past. That is the mental image. Both ahead of us and behind us, the road stretches on to eternity. So this is where we find ourselves together as a group, right here in the middle of infinity. With that, we're now ready to proceed forward in this chapter. Line 11, it says, therefore, the good person is the teacher of the bad person. So when we talk about the good person and the bad person, have to bring up the yin and yang complementary duality. In the Tao, indeed, there is a yin and yang approach to enlightenment, to teaching, to learning. So here's what I mean by that. When you and I observe the people all around us, we can see that some of them we admire, we respect, we look up to them. So these are the good person, represented by the yang in the yin and yang duality. And these are the people who possess actual, practical, authentic skills in the art of living. And we see them by the great results that they have attained for themselves. And of course, as we look at them, we would like to have the same good results for us. But then the yin and yang symbol at the other end of the spectrum, or the flip side of the coin, we find the bad person, the bad people, the yin side of the equation. And this is the complementary opposite, those who are not skilled, and therefore they create problem for themselves. Now, even though we use the verbiage, the good person and the bad person, I want to remind everyone that this is the Tao. So it is important for us to not read too much into the descriptive phrases, good person, bad person. It is not equated to good and evil. What I mean by that is that we all have imperfections, and therefore, from time to time, we become the bad person as well. As long as we have the potential to learn and address those flaws, everything works out well. So good and bad is on the surface level appearance that is visible to most. Everything is relative. Therefore, no matter what level of spirituality we may be at, there's going to be some who are above us and some who are below us in terms of levels that we ascend. When we're able to attain wisdom, we can say we have elevated ourselves to the next higher up level. We have risen up. This is part of the vertical paradigm in terms of spiritual refinement. Now, when I talk about going up a level, going to the next level, this is in the context of life skills that we can learn. Indeed, life skills can be learned by anyone. They're not reserved. They're not restricted. It is not that in ancient times, the life skills of the Tao were only reserved for the nobles. Quite the opposite. The Tao was available to anyone, regardless of social class. But then back to the relative nature of Tao cultivation. When you and I compare to ourselves to those at a higher level, we're the ones that are relatively unskilled. we have not attained the level where they're at. We're below them. They become our teachers. There is much we can learn from them. That just makes sense. And in the study of human excellence, modeling comes up again and again as the best way to emulate and then attain the same excellence. That's how we learn. What about the other way around? Compared to those at a lower level, well, of course, we have more experience. That's where we came from, the lower levels. And therefore, we can share the experience with those at the lower level in the hopes that perhaps we can help them elevate themselves as well. In the Tao, the paradigm is sharing, not lecturing. So words are given lesser importance than setting an example for others to follow. And when it comes to sharing, the idea is to share what we know, as I said, in the hopes that it can be helpful. Now, let me talk about levels higher and lower as the vertical paradigm, going up and down. So, vertically oriented metaphor, like a ladder or like a tower of many levels. Now, right before this, when I asked everyone to keep track of the mental imagery of travel on the road, that is a horizontal paradigm. This is, of course, frequently used in the Tao. So for that metaphor, we rotated 90 degrees. The sages and higher level cultivators, well, they're the people ahead of us. And just like the people who follow us, we've been where they are. The people ahead of us have already gone through the part of the road that we're about to experience for ourselves. And that's why they were in a position to provide guidance. Let me talk about this from a personal perspective. In the Tao, I have studied under multiple masters. Let me talk about two of them. There's Grandmaster Cai. From Grandmaster Cai, I learned about the true meaning of absolute integrity. The Grand Master embodied virtuous nature. So, without really doing anything in particular, he provided, to my mind, still today, the highest example of that virtuous nature that I had ever witnessed. He passed away years ago. In the Tao, we say that he returned to the emptiness of the Tao. I'm very grateful for the time that I spent with him. To me, the time was definitely not long enough, but it had the greatest personal impact on me. The other master is Senior Master Wu, who is alive and well. From Senior Master Wu, I learned about the real life application of the Tao. I learned that one can always apply the Tao, no matter what. When I visited with the Senior Master in his home, I saw a large plaque hanging on the wall. This large plaque, it memorialized an expression of gratitude from a group of people to him. So naturally, I was curious about this. I asked him, "What is this huge plaque?" Well, it turned out that in his job in the secular world from decades ago, the senior master was a high-level executive at a large company. His boss gave him a very difficult assignment. His task was to shut down a factory. And this was at a time when many factories were being shut down. The work was being shifted to other places with lower costs. So he had to be responsible for shutting down a factory affecting many factory workers. He went about this work with complete transparency. Following the Tao, he let the factory workers know in advance exactly what the plan was. He kept them updated every step of the way. Here's where we are right now, and here's the plan going forward. And I think it can never be underestimated how much people appreciate that level of transparency. Even if they cannot affect the course of events, they appreciate just knowing what's going on. So the senior master back then, he arranged for all the factory workers to get training for additional skills. Skills that will help them get other jobs someplace else. He also made sure they had job placement assistance. So, make a long story short, all the factory workers made the transition without affecting their livelihood. Some of them were able to get much better jobs with higher pay than before. They knew this was not the norm. As I said, other factories were also being shut down, but they were being shut down in a way that left the workers high and dry. Well, not this one. So to say that they were grateful would be an understatement. They got together on their own, decided on their own. Everybody pitched in to have this big plaque made in his honor to express their appreciation. So the senior master told me all he did was apply the Tao principles in his duties. It was exactly as he would for any other aspect of life. I was absolutely amazed because I had never seen a situation where factory workers that were let go ended up expressing their gratitude in a way like that. This was the Tao in action. So I resolved to learn the skill for myself, to apply the Tao in every aspect of life. So in that exchange, I want everyone to note the senior master was well above me. He was the good person and he was my teacher. Compared to him, I was at a lower level. I was the bad person learning to better myself. This was a life-changing experience for me, learning this lesson from Senior Master Wu. However, I would like to make it clear that learning from such a genuine master is not the only avenue of learning in the Tao. And I know there are those who hear me talk about this experience. They may think, well, I don't have access to ordained masters from an authentic Tao tradition like Derek does. Well, I want to say, absolutely, this does not mean they are out of luck. Quite the contrary. Let me explain by clarifying who are our teachers. In the Tao, if I were to pose this question, I think one of the first answers would be, well, we learn from the ancient sages. We read the sutras, we read the classics. No question, this is a primary avenue of learning for every generation. I would only point out that these ancient sages are long gone, so no longer with us physically. They cannot answer our questions or provide guidance in person. That we already know and accept. So what if we need some kind of interaction? Well, the other avenue, as I have related in my personal experience, would be the masters of a wisdom tradition. And there are, of course, many wisdom traditions in the world. Now here I want to, first and foremost, say the real answer to this question is not limited to these masters. And I would also acknowledge the reality that authentic mastery may not be easy to find. As I mentioned, some people may live in an area that does not have a diverse range of options. Also, in the path of spiritual exploration, we know it can sometimes lead to those who do not necessarily embody the wisdom that they claim. For instance, some may be more focused on outward appearance or personal gain than providing real guidance to us. Therefore, I think it would be wise to cultivate the skill of being able to discern the truth, to seek out those whose actions align with their teachings. I would further suggest that we should always approach with a healthy dose of critical thinking. We should look past surface appearance, like attire. It doesn't matter to me if the master is dressed in exotic robes. It does matter to me that the master is taking the appropriate care of appearance as would anyone else in society. I would also look past the name, because sometimes when it comes to Asian traditions, people associate an Asian name with authenticity. In my experience, that is not true. Indeed, someone who goes by a very Asian, non-typical name may have no greater understanding of the Tao than you. but they create this aura as if they do. And it doesn't even matter if they come from a country of origin that matches the tradition that you have in mind. Again, that is a superficiality. In my experience, someone from a foreign land is not necessarily better qualified than someone who is not. It really depends on the character of the person. We need to look past all that so we can observe the real lessons. And as I said, I've been very fortunate. I encountered and learned from real life sages. I know that such extraordinary individuals are exceedingly rare. In the past decades, out of all who have titles and all the people who claim mastery, I have seen perhaps 1 in 100 who truly embodies the qualities of a master. All of these people have different personalities. They're no two alike. They do have some characteristics in common. For instance, real mastery is characterized by humility, selfless service, lack of ego, and a deep embodiment of principles, not show, not the external, outward putting on a show. Real understanding emerges from a place of profound personal experience and the resulting inner transformation rather than theoretical knowledge. The greatest masters I have encountered personally base their wisdom on practical, actual life experience, lived experience, not theories. And these teachers share their wisdom with a low profile quietude and a distinct lack of self-promotion. So I want to offer my experience as a helpful way so that next time you encounter someone who may be a master, that you can evaluate for yourself. You be the judge. Now, I want to get to the real answer of the Tao. Answer this question. Who are our teachers? The answer in the Tao comes from this particular phrase. And here's the translation I will offer. It says, when 3 people walk together, one of them must be my teacher. And let me quickly break down the characters. You see 7 characters in the Chinese. The first character is simply 3. The second character is person or people. The third character is travel, to walk. And then the fourth character there, the first or the second group, that's the character for must. This is followed by the character for have, and then the character for my, and lastly, character for teacher. So a literal transcription will be something like 3 people walk, must have my teacher. And the meaning is closer to the translation that you see there. This is from the Analects of Confucius. The meaning of three people is not three ordained masters or three sages. Literally, it means any three people, and that's because we can potentially learn from anyone. This concept is in complete congruence with the Tao because it comes from a place of humility. As we are cultivating the Tao, we never assume we know it all. We never place ourselves above others. Instead, we want to be ready to listen. The default assumption is that one can learn something new every day, including today. So it's an attitude of openness, and that's actually crucial. We all come into this world with different talents and abilities. Nobody is the best at everything. Our expression, the jack of all trades, well, that is the master of none. We're all here to help one another and learn from one another. It really does not matter how knowledgeable or intelligent you may be. Whenever you are with three or more people, you can be absolutely certain that you will find valuable learning opportunities in your interactions with them. Indeed, I think it is fun to look for and discover learning opportunities everywhere in life. And this means keeping your perceptions in tune with this openness to new ideas. I would even suggest asking yourself throughout the day, what are some interesting things I can learn here? Dig a little deeper. Ask questions. Chances are excellent that you'll be delighted with wisdom that can sometimes come from unexpected sources. This is an excerpt. It is from the Tao of Joy Every Day. It is day 3, called Learning Opportunities. Why is it day 3? Because I wanted to match the day with the same 3 people walking together. This can give whole new meaning to what Lao Tzu says in this chapter. Therefore, the good person is the teacher of the bad person. Who is the good person? Well, it can be one of the people that you encounter in every walk of life. Who is the bad person? Well, that can be the learning person, which would be you and me. Continue on. Line 12. The bad person is the resource of the good person. So this is another way of looking at the learning dynamics. Learning is a two-way street. When we teach, we also learn. The detached observation of the Tao gives us lessons from all different directions. As I mentioned, when someone teaches in the Tao, it is best done through actions instead of words. And Lao Tzu describes this specifically as the teaching without words. And when we see such actions, we seek to emulate to embody the same level of excellence. On the flip side, we can also observe someone not as an example, but as a cautionary tale. And when we see that as an example, we use it to avoid becoming a cautionary tale ourselves. For instance, while on the road, we may see someone speeding and then get into an accident. That will be the clearest possible reminder for us to drive careful, to be attentive to road conditions, to not rush, and to prioritize our safety, the safety of our passengers. We may see a colleague at work being excessively critical and demanding. Then we may further observe that when this person needs help, nobody lifts a finger. Everybody stays far away. That can be a lesson for us to develop our own communication skills along with tact and diplomacy. Refine our patience and resilience to better collaborate with other people. Now, not necessarily in the workplace, but just in our daily interactions with friends and acquaintances. We may see somebody being dishonest and manipulative. That's actually quite common. So when we observe this from the sidelines, we can see how this behavior can erode relationships. It can damage trust. It can undermine respect. So this reinforces our own personal commitment to integrity, following ethics, have a sense of honor. It solidifies the moral compass to do the right thing. Now, this was also a concept that Confucius taught. As I mentioned previously, he was a student of the Tao. According to legend, he was a disciple of Lao Tzu as well. So legends are depicted in movies, but historical fact was that he learned from the Tao, the same source as all other sages, including Lao Tzu. In the Analects, Confucius expressed this concept that we're examining now in a way that parallels what Lao Tzu taught. So we have seen Lao Tzu say, therefore, the good person is the teacher of the bad person. Confucius expresses the same idea in his own way. And the translation is, see virtuous people and think about emulating them. So it is easy to understand that when you and I observe people who are worthy of respect and admiration, we should think about how we can be more like them by emulating their behavior, the virtues they exhibit. Then Lao Tzu also says, the bad person is the resource of the good person. And here again, Confucius expresses the same idea in his own way. And the translation is, see those lacking in virtues and reflect inwardly on oneself. So a lot of times in life, we're gonna witness people behaving in such ways as to make it clear their virtues are lacking. Now, it's easy to just dismiss such people with contempt. The challenge from Confucius is to turn our thoughts inward to conduct a review on ourselves. So questions would be, am I also lacking in virtues like them? Do I have the same faults that they do? So you can see these thoughts are very similar for both Laozi and Confucius. The interplay of the complements, the good and the bad, those who have virtues, those who lack virtues, they're like two sides of the same coin. Or we can be more precise, speaking in the Tao, they are yet another way to see the yin and yang complementary duality at work. On one side of this duality, we have the good and virtuous. So because there are so many things we can learn, so many areas of learning, the range of good person that we can learn from may be larger than we realize. So the 2 points here, teach through setting personal examples, not words. And this is what I meant about what Lao Tzu mentioned specifically, the teaching without words. It is from Dao De Jing, chapter 43. This is not a foreign concept to us. In the West, we often say and ask the question, can someone practice what he preaches? Sometimes we say, can he walk his talk? For Lao Tzu, it's more like more practicing, less preaching, or more walking, less talking. Now, such people are truly and naturally inspirational. If and when you meet someone like that, the effect can seem like magic. What I mean is, somehow, these people make us want to be a better version of ourselves. On the flip side of the coin, we have the bad person or those who are lacking in virtues, the unvirtuous. I think people tend to underestimate the importance of such people. They do us a great service by reminding us to look at ourselves. And that's what I mean by become a mirror so we can examine ourselves. We can look at our own reflection. Do I have the same fault? Do I have the same lack of virtues? And they give us a chance to learn from the consequences they experience. The more spectacular their failure, the more powerful the reminders become. And speaking of mirrors, it is always helpful to remember that because nobody is perfect, we ourselves are still lacking in some virtues. Therefore, from time to time, the bad person, who is the bad person? Well, the bad person is the one who is staring back at us in the mirror. And that means we too, oh yeah, you and I can fail in spectacular ways also. We too can serve as a reminder or a mirror for someone else. We too can give other people the chance to learn from the consequences we suffer. And keeping this in mind keeps us humble in the heart as well. So, with all of this, I think what Lao Tzu says, the bad person is the resource of the good person. I believe now we can see this line in a whole new light. Next line, line 13. It says, those who do not value their teachers. Well, I want to start off by saying that gratitude is an important virtue in the Tao. Therefore, those who do not value their teachers are lacking in this particular virtue. To value the teaching and the teacher, what that means is, number one, being willing to learn in the first place. And number two, respecting and appreciate the wisdom that has been passed down to us. Now, you may say, of course, people appreciate their teachers. And I would say, in my observation, in my experience, not always. Why do I say that? Well, I have seen how sometimes people may take the teaching for granted. They don't really assign great value to it. Or sometimes people see themselves as surpassing the teacher, which can just be the ego at work. In real life experience, I know a few individuals who have learned vocational skills from a particular teacher. Subsequently, they built their careers based on those skills, and they have done really well. They prospered. However, ego creeps in. Due to their ego, they never acknowledge the source of their knowledge. Why? Because they prefer to make it seem like they're self-taught. Sad, but true. Line 14. And do not love their resources. What this means is to say that not love one's resources. It means some people may be, first of all, unaware. They're not aware they should heed the warning of the cautionary tale. They have not considered the possibility of how such a thing can happen to them. They may be also unwilling to learn. They may be unwilling to learn from the misfortune of the bad person. They may feel contemptuous of the resource. They don't think of the resource as a resource. Lao Tzu will point to them and say that this person is a valuable resource to you, but to them, in their contempt, they would think, well, the bad thing that happened to them, they did it to themselves. They deserve all the bad things that they have brought upon themselves. So, contempt. Or they may feel smugly superior to the resource. That is, they may say, I'm not like them. I can never be like them. What happened to them can never happen to me. Of course, the irony of fate is such that it is going to happen to them. So it pays for us to approach instead with humility rather than a superior attitude. So, how do the sages look at resources or the bad person? It's different. They don't feel contempt, they feel compassion. Nobody's perfect. Bad things can happen to anyone. Therefore, the thinking of the sages is more in line with the phrase, there but for the grace of God go I. Yeah, what happened to that person, it can totally happen to me, but for the grace of God. Furthermore, the sages realize nobody is superior or inferior in the Tao. We are all going through the life journey, no exception. And this journey, as I have talked about before, this lifetime may just be one of many. So the thinking is more like, for all I know, I could have messed up even more. I could have done it even worse. If not in this lifetime, then in a previous lifetime. I have no recollection of such, but it could have happened. Third, the sages look at the bad person or the resources in a different way because they go beyond the superficial to the heart of the matter. So when you learn to see people like the sages, you depart from the usual way that people judge, which is often by material quantity. The person's worth is tied to, for instance, their income. A person's loss, for instance, losing assets, losing financial resources, it is judged by how much money was lost, or judged based on social status, rather than to look at these superficial manifestations. The heart of the matter means that the sages empathize at a deeper level. And the idea is that you know the person who is suffering is regretting the past misdeeds and resolving to be different going forward. The sages would absolutely agree with this because the past does not equal the future. This is true for all of us. I have made my share of mistakes in my past. So have you. So has everyone. It is all right. The past does not equal the future. We don't have to repeat those past mistakes. So the sages realize the best way to avoid a similar fate that the bad person is going through is to learn. The entire purpose of the karmic structure that is common to all of us is to amplify our learning opportunities. Let us move on. Line 15. Although intelligent, they are greatly confused. So here I want to bring up this topic that intelligence and wisdom are different attributes. Sometimes people mix them up, but the more experience we have in life, the more we see people who are smart, yet they act in ways that we can only describe as unwise. So it is true in this topic as well. Some people can be quite clever, and yet they lack respect or love for teachers and resources. This is the observation from Lao Tzu. They don't really see that resources, like the bad person, they're just tools that can help us grow. So, despite the cleverness, they're still lost in a fundamental way. They have not really understood the Tao. And as long as they remain in this lack of awareness, their progress will always be impeded. Furthermore, if they do not have a source of learning, a guide, a mentor, a friend who is truthful with them, they may not have anyone who understands the Tao to point this out to their attention, so they can suddenly realize what they've been doing wrong. So in that regard, you and I are fortunate. We have one another. We can learn from one another. I'm very thankful for that. So now we're getting close to the end. Line 16. This is called the essential wonder. Why is it called the essential wonder? Because oftentimes people do not realize that the roles of teachers and students are fluid and dynamic. Good person and bad person are not absolute. As I pointed out, they are the yin and yang complementary duality. We've all been on both sides. We've all been the observer and the observed at various times. As we master the skills more and more, we become more like teachers to those who are just starting out. But then we serve as resources for those ahead of us or at a higher level. When we realize this, like, hey, people are not so different from me. They have the same struggles. They have the same aspirations. It gives us the understanding and love for all, regardless of who they are. Now, this is perhaps not so obvious to many people. It is a subtle kind of wisdom, and that's why it is the essential wonder. So how can we minimize letting ourselves become yet another cautionary tale? Like, yes, I understand that sometimes I become a resource for other people. I am interested in minimizing that and learn and grow and develop and get better and more skillful in life. That is the key, skillfulness. Let me put everything together in one slide so we can talk about all that we have learned. in this chapter. So this is the graphic. My goal is to summarize everything, distill the essence of Lao Tzu. It's a narrative. The narrative begins with you, represented by this traveling figure, carrying a walking stick and a backpack of essential supplies. Previously, we talked about essential supplies in life. That is what the backpack represents. So, as you are walking, you find yourself on your life journey. You are moving from birth to death, just like everyone else. Therefore, to the left, the beginning of the path is marked with life, symbolizing the beginning of life, but also the entire path is the journey of life, traveling from birth to death. At some point, you begin to wonder, is this path all that there is? Like, I just keep going until I die? I just live in accordance with other people's expectations? Is there more to it? Is there more to life? And you realize your path is not the only one. Your curiosity, as well as your good luck, your good fortune, they led you to discover a different path, the Tao. You're not the only one with these questions that you've been asking. Since ancient times, great minds have pondered the same questions, and more than that, they have mapped out a better path, a path that is different from the typical mundane path that you are on at the moment. So, knowing this, you decide to change your path. You decide to switch to the Tao. There are many paths in life, and we are free to choose the path that suits us. In this case, it is the path of the Tao. So, before we go further, let me make this point. This image you see right now, it is depicting the path of the Tao running parallel to the non-Tao path. This is for the sake of simplicity. What actually happens in life is that the paths diverge. The more you understand the Tao, the more clarity you have, the further you are or move away from the conventional mindset. You can still understand people because their path is where you came from. But increasingly, the people who do not know the Tao may not understand the way you think and why you think like that. So the paths would actually not be parallel, but would angle away from each other. Also, the Tao, as described by Lao Tzu, is a paved road. Lao Tzu says it is wide and plain. It is easy to walk. Without the Tao, the life journey has many more challenges. It can get really rough sometimes. So this is, for the sake of simplicity, not depicted in our graphic here. In this image, it looks like both paths are equally smooth and straightforward. In real life, that is not the case. Traversing on the Tao, on the path of the Tao, you find that there are people, other people on the path of the Tao ahead of you. They have made the same discovery about the Tao that you did. They made the same decision to take it. They have more experience, more understanding, more mastery of the skills in living the Tao life. So naturally, they are the teachers. More skillful in life, they've been where you are. And in addition to them, there are also ancient sages who are long gone, but have passed down their wisdom through their teachings, like the classics. So, living or gone, they become your teachers because the skills they teach is what you can learn from in order to better yourself. So these are the skills of the goodness. One of the first things you note about the teachers is that they, as Lao Tzu describes them, they travel without leaving tracks. Good traveling is the term that Lao Tzu used. It means unattached actions. That is to say, they embody the Wu Wei principle. So they do everything without attachments, without making a mark, without wanting to be seen or expecting some kind of praise or payback. When you get a chance to interact with them, your teachers, you get the sense that they have a helpfulness and compassion that is genuine. You also find that they speak in a positive way. Your teachers in life, they're not harshly judgmental. They've been where you are. They do not find faults, point the blame. They are encouraging. And this is what Lao Tzu calls good speaking. So you reflect that the writing of the ancient sages are similar in that the ancient sages also provide guidance without criticism, without lecturing, without pointing blame, finding faults. You also notice that these people ahead of you in the Tao, above you in terms of refinement, spiritual levels, they don't keep track. They don't keep track of the good that they have done, the favors they have done for others. Lao Tzu says this is good counting. No need to keep track of scores. They believe the karmic balance of the Tao will keep better track of everything than you and I ever can. So spiritually, you are with your teachers and they keep you with them with the goodness of their character. It is as if you are locked in a room with them, except there is no lock at all. So good closure keeps people in, no need to use locks. Furthermore, you are connected to them as if you are tied to them with ropes, except there are no ropes at all. This is the good knot, which is not a knot and not a rope at all. So they see value in everyone. They give up on no one. They save you from being lost and adrift. They will not abandon you. The good examples they have set save you from making mistakes in your life. You emulate this goodness. You practice the skills they have demonstrated so you can master the same skills. You are walking in their footsteps, literally. You are continuing the tradition and legacy they have set. So that's what the teachers ahead of you on the path. You look behind you and you realize that there are also people on the path behind you. Although they walk the Tao as you do, they know less about it compared to your current state of knowledge. The where you used to be, you remember being just like them. They become your resources. They remind you of what you have learned, what you need to reinforce, and what you need to work on. They are your resources. Less skillful in life, they are where you were. Not only that, you also realize that there are still many people, unlike yourself, still unaware of the path. They too are your resources. When you observe them, you note the difficulties they face that can be handled so much better if only they knew about the Tao. They too become your resources because they provide unwitting testimonials about the difference that the Tao has made in your life. It dawns on you that you can be their teacher if they are willing to learn from you. And it also dawns on you that because you are less skillful, less experienced than your own teachers, so your challenges and mistakes, you serve as a resource for them as well. So Lao Tzu calls this dichotomy, this dynamic, the essential wonder. And the essential wonder is you are both. You're a student, you are a teacher, you are both at the same time. You can be a resource. Nobody is perfect. It all depends on where you are in your spiritual journey. So you should not just treat your teachers with respect, valuing their lessons, but also you should treat your resources with kindness and love. Just like the way that you hope to be treated when you do not understand as much. Just like you hope to be treated by your own teachers. So there are those who have yet to understand this, and it doesn't matter how smart they are still falling short of understanding the Tao. And how can you have people be willing to listen to you for what you have to share with them? It goes back to the skills that you are working on. So looking at the top of the image, you remind yourself again that you want to be like the people you emulate from. You also wish to master the good traveling, the good speaking, good counting, good closure, and good not. So all of this is exactly as Lao Tzu says. Although intelligent, they are greatly confused. This is called the essential wonder. Some people cannot see this at all, either as a graphic or as a mental image in the mind. They can become rather superior or contemptuous of those they regard as the less fortunate. In this narrative, we started from the bottom and we worked our way to the top. But if you visually scan this image from the top to the bottom, you will find that the order and progression corresponds exactly to the sequence of the lines in this chapter as written by Lao Tzu. This concludes our line-by-line analysis and discussion of Tao Te Ching 27. Now it is time for our paraphrase of this chapter. Our purpose, as always, is to demonstrate understanding by expressing the original using modern language. The first section is all about the 5 skills of goodness. Here is the paraphrase I would like to offer. The skillful way to travel through life causes no disruptions. The skillful way to speak does not point the blame. The skillful way to gauge success does not keep track of scores. In relationships, a truly powerful bond keeps people at your side as if they are locked up or tied up with you. But there are no locks or ropes. Your connection with them is stronger than any locks or ropes. Now we can move on to section 2. Section 2 turns the attention back on the sages and describes the relationships with people and things. Here is the paraphrase I want to offer. This is how sages treat others. They are skillful in saving people by guiding them to the right path without imposing on them or abandoning them. They are also skillful in saving things, in putting them to good use without hoarding or wasting anything. In life, they are following the enlightened footsteps of the ancient masters, and we, in turn, are following theirs. So I hope that paints the mental image for you that recalls to mind the previous slide that draws everything together. And now the last section. This is about the interesting dynamics of the good person and the bad person, the teachers and the resources. Here's a paraphrase for that. In doing so, we should know that while the good person serves as a teacher of the bad person also serves as the resource for the good. We should not only value our teachers, but also love our resources. Those who respect the good person, but disdain the bad, are confused, regardless of how intelligent they may be. Ultimately, we are all here to help and cherish one another. This is the essential wonder of our existence. That is the paraphrase for Tao Te Ching chapter 27. To really wrap everything up, we go to the full circle. In the last lines of Tao Te Ching 27, Lao Tzu says, those who do not value their teachers and love their resources are greatly confused. And you see that in the last 2 lines. We link this back to the beginning and we see the 5 skills of goodness in living life to the utmost. So the message is clear. One requirement to live skillfully in the Tao is to accept and embrace all, whether they happen to be our teachers or our resources. The Tao is everywhere. There is good in everything and everyone, including all the things and people that many would discard or disregard. This brings us to the final lines to serve as a warning to us, a cautionary note. If we do not love teachers as well as our resources, then such people, although intelligent, they are greatly confused. This is called the essential wonder. And that, everybody, wraps up Tao Te Ching chapter 27 in totality. We now go to the summary as a reminder for everyone in the weeks ahead of us. Keep in mind the 5 skills of goodness. The travelers does not leave tracks. Easy way to remember this is to think about Wu Wei. Move through life without disturbance. There's no need to leave a mark or expect some kind of reward. Good teachings are good speakers who will not seek faults or point the blame. And the quote that I have there from Catholicism, to err is human, to forgive is divine. Therefore, no need to seek faults. Then, good reckoning, not keeping track of favors done for others, no need to hold grudges. It is indeed true that living well is the best revenge. Rather than to get back at anyone, focus on living your best life in the Tao. Then, good closure requires no locks. This is about the harmony with people, family, friends, anybody. Keep people close to you because they are among your essential supplies in the journey of life. Lastly, good knot is a strong, powerful connection, does not require any ropes. And I'm hoping that this means all of us will remain connected always. And that is only the first part of the summaries. Today, we talked about teachers, we talked about resources, or in other words, the cautionary tales. From the teachers, we learn from their positive examples. This is what most people do. This is easy to understand. The flip side of it, be a teacher for others. In the Tao, we want to keep in mind that the best way to teach is by setting a good personal example. And learn from the mistakes of others, and that's what makes them such valuable resources for us. Lastly, appreciate everybody, teachers and resources alike. Let us not be like the people who only value teachers but not resources. In the Tao, we recognize that we've all been there. We've all been everything. Share the Tao. For easy access to Tao resources, visit my author website, dereklin.com. There, you can click on links and see everything listed, such as Taoism.net, information about the Tao and this meeting, our Facebook community, a place to discuss the Tao with fellow seekers, our YouTube channel, recordings of all our previous meetings, my Amazon author page, books and audiobooks for further exploration. You can go directly to this page at dereklin.com/links. When you see the benefits of the Tao in your life, share your experience through comments in Facebook and share these resources with friends who may also benefit. If you find my books or audiobooks helpful, please post your reviews on Amazon to guide others to the Tao. If you have connections to prisoners interested in the Tao, contact me through Derek Lin Books on Facebook, and I will send my books to them free of charge. This is the path that I am on, so I can say sharing the Tao has transformed my life in incredible ways. I would like you to be invited to come along. Let us travel together on the path in the journey of life. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.